Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 18th, 2022. I am Dave Biddle, flying solo on today's show. A lot to get into. A big recruiting weekend for the Buckeyes is already paying off. They landed 2 commits yesterday. We'll start off with that. And then the majority of the show will be talking about the spring game from Saturday. Talked about it a lot after the game. I've had a chance to rewatch the game a couple times. So, a lot was learned, and we'll get into what we learned from the spring game. But let's start off talking some recruiting here. Buckeyes landed 2 recruits yesterday, both from the state of Florida. This gives them 9 recruits in their 2023 class. This vaults them to the number 2 class in the country right now. Texas Tech has the number 1 class. They have like 15 commitments in their class. Ohio State cleaning up, doing a great job, particularly in the state of Florida. 4 of their 9 commits are from the state of Florida, including, like I said, the 2 young men they got yesterday. Corner Dijon Johnson. I love that name. Dijon Johnson from Tampa, number 29 corner in the country. He's a 4-star prospect, number 265 overall player in the country. Very good get there. I bet his ranking will do nothing but rise. And speaking of a young man whose ranking will do nothing but rise, 3-star wide receiver Bryson Rodgers was the other young man that committed to Ohio State yesterday. If Brian Hartline wants him, I bet you he ain't going to be a 3-star for long. Brian Hartline, I think if he recruits a wide receiver, at the very least that wide receiver should be a high 4-star. I mean, Brian Hartline has proven he is the best at what he does in the country in wide receiver recruiting. It helps when you have Ryan Day as your head coach and the quarterbacks that he recruits in the type of offense. But Bryson Rodgers right now, 3-star, number 49 wide receiver in the country. Again, you think Brian Hartline thinks he's a number 49 receiver in the country? No, much higher. Number 367 overall player in the country. 2 really good gets there for the Buckeyes. Dijon Johnson and Bryson Rodgers. Again, I think you can look for their stock to be on the rise here. All right, let's get into what we learned from the spring game. So much that we learned. I tell you what, one thing we learned is that there's a debate on who was the player of the game. Was it Evan Pryor, Jordan Hancock, or Kye Stokes? One thing that is not up for debate, all 3 of those young men are good at football and will just get better. Love seeing that. I mean, Kye Stokes is a true freshman, should still be in high school right now. He looks like he's going to back up Ronnie Hickman at that free safety spot. Love that. Jordan Hancock is going to, at the very worst, be the number 3 corner. He played great. And then Evan Pryor, even though he's going to be the 3rd-string tailback, you never know. That 3rd-string tailback might end up being quickly the backup or the starter. Their injuries can happen. Hopefully they don't. Because I really like the top 2 guys with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, but Evan Pryor put on a show. That was good to see. And I thought Mayan Williams, I don't think he's getting enough talk because Evan Pryor, played so well and Evan Pryor got more touches. But Mayan Williams, man, he was out there, going against that first-team defense and second-team defense, and he is tough to bring down. So Buckeyes are just loaded all over on offense. But, that I love the running backs. Some other things that stood out. Let's get into some other young guys that stood out. I think at the tight end position, it's encouraging to see what we saw from Joe Royer and G. Scott Jr. I mean, both those guys, 3rd-year sophomores, really good to see that. Kate Stover was in there early, and they got him out of there. He's going to be that blocking guy. Mitch Rossi's another guy they're going to use that kind of as a fullback, H-back. But Joe Royer looks like a player. G. Scott's looking like a player. G. Scott led the team in receptions with 5 during the spring game. So that was really cool. Those guys are on the rise for sure. Emeka Egbuka, we expected that. We knew Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison were going to be the number 2 and 3 wide receivers on the team. So I thought, those guys, Emeka Egbuka had a really good spring game. He really stood out. Marvin Harrison didn't do that much, but, I'm still sky high on Marvin Harrison. I mean, again, unbelievable. You lose 2 first-round wide receivers, and they're not going to skip a beat. And that's nothing against Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. It's just the way it is. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka. Unbelievable. And then, I know, unfortunately, Julian Fleming was banged up, wasn't able to scrimmage. We're not sure why, but Ryan Day did say it was just precautionary, day-to-day, nothing serious. Now, the concern there is, though, Julian Fleming, it's kind of adding up. We all, follow different sports. Like if you follow the Reds, and hopefully you don't. Hopefully you do not follow the Cincinnati Reds. That is not something you want to do. But I do. And there's a guy really talented for the Reds named Nick Senzel that just can't stay healthy. And it's like one thing right now, Nick Senzel's on the COVID list and tested negative for COVID. It's just a weird MLB protocol. Yeah. Did not test positive, tested negative for COVID, but is on the COVID list right now. Anyway, he's had a litany of injuries, illnesses, and I'm worried that, that Julian Fleming is going down that path. I don't want to say he's been Nick Senzel yet, but it's concerning that, Julian Fleming seems to always be banged up. Hopefully he can get over that, and I'm glad it's nothing serious. That's the good news, because Julian Fleming's got a lot of talent, and you're loaded at wide receiver when Julian Fleming's your number 4 receiver. So, the other really disappointing thing, the only injury during the game itself, Julian Fleming didn't dress, or if he did, he didn't play. I think he actually did dress. I think I saw him during warmups. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. I think he was on the sideline, but just didn't play. But Mitchell Melton, obviously, defensive end, third-year sophomore. We still don't know, but the way he was reacting, the players know. The way he was, he had to be, helped to the training room, to the locker room, and he threw his gloves, and he was just, you could tell he didn't think he sprained a knee, put it that way. And hopefully he did. Sometimes players think it's more serious than it is, but usually they know better than anybody. It's their body. And it looked like it was a non-contact injury. He's holding his knee. And that poor kid was really coming on, having a good spring, working as that number 2 Leo behind Jack Sawyer. We'll get to Jack Sawyer in a moment. And his running mate at defensive end, that big guy named JT Tuimoloau. We'll get to those guys in a second, but we'll find out. Jim Knowles said after the game he wasn't sure. So they keep injuries pretty close to the vest over there. We're not meeting with the coaches this week. They're all recruiting and doing a good job, as we're learning, on the recruiting front. Number 2 class in the country, as we talked about earlier. But yeah, Mitchell Melton, non-contact injury, held his knee. Hopefully he's going to be okay, because they're going to need him. Backing up Jack Sawyer. Now, if it is serious, a guy that I think is maybe not getting enough pub, who showed a great motor, had a good spring game, Caden Curry, another true freshman. I don't think he's going to have a huge role, but I think he's going to play. Caden Curry's a guy that helped himself this spring. Coaches like him, just a high motor, tough kid, gritty. Love him. And it's not like he's like some overachiever. He was an All-American. He played in the All-American Bowl. And I know some fans were like, oh, is he undersized? I mean, he's 6'3", 250 right now, should still be in high school. Wait till he gets a year with Mick, and he already looks like he's, he can bull rush, he's quick, and he's just going to get bigger and stronger. 6'3", 250 for a defensive end. Nothing small about that. I think some people thought maybe he'd be a 3-tech D tackle, is why people were concerned about his size. But, man, he looks like a young Matt Finkus to me, as I said on the postgame show on Saturday. Okay, I tell you what, guys, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, wow. I mean, we expected big things out of them. They just look like a 2-man wrecking crew out there. I mean, and Zach Harrison looks good to me, and Zach Harrison is going to be the number 3 defensive end on this team. I mean, he's going to play a lot. All 3 of those guys are going to play starter snaps, but, man, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau started the game, and that said a lot to me, because they were putting their starters out there. I mean, you can tell. I mean, it's safety. Josh Proctor was out there, even though he was just out there when they were thudding. He wasn't out there when they were tackling. He's going to be that starting bandit. Court Williams has been banged up, but Court Williams will be in the mix there at that bandit safety, strong safety, boundary, whatever you want to call it. They call it the bandit. Then that adjuster, the free safety. I love these names from Jim Knowles, the adjuster. The adjuster will be Ronnie Hickman, will be that free safety, and I think Kye Stokes will back him up. And then you got Tanner McAllister at slot safety, and I think Cam Martinez will back him up. So I like that group of 6 safeties right there. Then you still have Andre Turrentine look decent in the spring game. They're going to get Jansen Dunn back at some point. So I like what I'm seeing at safety. The point is, they had the starting safeties out there, and when they had the starting defensive line out there, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, boy, do they look good. Boy, do they look good. I know people are down on what they saw from Paris Johnson and some of the things that happened on the offensive line. Keep in mind, he's going against elite defensive ends, and that'll just make him better. And I think people are being a little too hard on Paris Johnson. I think he's going to be just fine. Wait till he gets more practice under his belt. Just now moving back to left tackle, and Justin Fry's just now getting his hands on him. Paris Johnson's got so much talent. If that's the biggest concern for Ohio State entering the season, Paris Johnson at left tackle, it's going to be a hell of a good season, because I think he's going to be more than fine, and I like the starters overall. Now, I'm concerned about the depth on the O-line. I'm concerned about the depth on the O-line for sure. Now, Ryan Day's concerned about it. So if we're not concerned about it, we would be crazy because the head coach is being very clear that he's concerned about it. And that's not like a typical Ryan Day thing. I mean, for a football coach, I think he's pretty honest with the media. He'll tell you, like, if I don't want to talk, he doesn't want to talk about injuries, instead of like lying, he'll just say, I don't want to talk about that. And I really respect that about him. He's not really big into like telling you, yeah, this is our weakness and whatnot, but he's been clear. I mean, he's concerned about depth on the O-line. So that is a big concern. The second team offensive line just got smoked. I mean, they're so deep on the D line. But again, I mean, this O-line is not going to face anybody until they get maybe to the postseason. Maybe if they are fortunate enough to play Alabama in the national championship game. And I don't even know if they're going to face a better defensive line like this that they face in practice every day. Even Alabama, we'll see. Ohio State could have the best defensive line in the country. If not, it's going to be one of the best. So I get it. I get the concerns on the offensive line, especially the depth. When the head coach is saying it's a concern, it's a massive concern. Starters, I'm not concerned with, though. They're going to get Josh Fryer back. He's going to be that top backup. And we'll see. Maybe a Tegra to Shabola. We'll just call him Tegra. You know what I'm talking about. The offensive lineman that's coming as a true freshman this year from Lakota West. He looked good in the All-American game, and he's a massive man. Now, it's going to be tough for him coming in June to play a lot as a true freshman in the offensive line, as we all know. That's going to be tough to do. Be different if he enrolled early, but at least that'll give them more depth up there when that big guy enrolls. It's like 6'5", like 240, 6'6", 240. I mean, he's what you want out of a tackle, but he's still young. But I think Paris Johnson and Dijon Johnson are going to be good. Not just fine, decent. I think they're going to be good at tackle this year. And I like the interior guys. I think Donovan Jackson's a star on the rise. Luke Whippler, a student of the game. Luke Whippler says, and he's not just saying this to sound good to the media. Luke Whippler says his hobbies are working out and watching film. And again, he's not saying that to sound, that sounds good, something you'd say to the media to sound good, right? Oh, look at this guy. He's being totally serious. Like when you talk to his teammates, talk to his coaches, they're like, yeah, that's him. I love that. The center is the quarterback of the offensive line, and he's just going to get better. He was a redshirt freshman last year, keep in mind. So if he stays all 4 years, or 5 years in his case, he'll be a 4-year starter at center. And I don't think he's going to be an early entry guy, but I think he's a hell of a college player. He's only going to get better. Had his ups and downs, of course, as a redshirt freshman, true, first-year starter. But I think now as a third-year player, year of starting under his belt, Luke Whippler is going to be good. I love Matt Jones being a full-time starter for the first time as a fifth-year senior. Kid out of Brooklyn, waited his turn, same high school as Curtis Samuel, Erasmus Hall, and finally was a fifth-year senior, kid that's played well the last 2 years, Matt Jones. Who was, I think we forget, was a big-time recruit. Wasn't a 5-star, but was a very high 4-star. Was like the number 2 center. He was listed as a center in the recruiting rankings and like top 50 overall recruit in the country, Matt Jones, and now as a fifth-year senior. He's a starter. So, we'll see. What else do we want to get into here? I thought a couple of veterans that we don't really talk about much on the D-line. That's how deep they are on the D-line. Jaden McKenzie at defensive tackle, I thought looked pretty good as I rewatched the game. And even live, watching it from the moon, the press box, you have the view of the moon from the moon when you're in Ohio State's press box. It's like above C-deck, as you guys know. It's not a great view. I see the game much better on TV. But I digress. I thought Jaden McKenzie looked good. He's a third-team D tackle. He's a fourth-year junior, and he looks good. Third team, maybe fourth team. He might be a fourth-team D tackle. He's probably the sixth or seventh D tackle. So right there, floating in the third team or fourth team, and he looks good. Noah Potter looked pretty good to me. He was a guy that I kind of wrote off at not just because of that serious. He had a real serious eye injury, almost lost his eye. Had a detached retina. Goodness gracious. Thank goodness he's okay now. He's fine now. But he looked good out there. Another fourth-year junior, guy that can add depth there. So a lot of good stuff there. I'm going to talk about a lot of this stuff. I'm going to do a written version of what we learned for the site on Bucknuts, so you guys can check that out. Let's see if we'll get to some quick questions here before I wrap up the show. We'll go through. We have some comments and some questions. Yeah, good. I love all the loyal listeners here and viewers. There we go. Yeah, what's with the snow? It's not snowing here in the capital city, but we're hearing it might. It's raining. It's like 40. Not good. All right. Do we have any questions we want to get to? Okay, we got some comments. Okay, here we go. Ohio State will win the Natty this year, Evan says. I think we would all be down with that. Good morning, Sue. Yeah, more national championship talk. I like it. Okay, David is cutting to the chase here. Yeah, I talked about this a little bit. How concerned am I with this offensive line? They seem to be exposed a few times in pass pro. Yeah, I mean, the defensive line got the better of them. It is a concern depth-wise. Again, I like the starters. I think people are freaking out a little bit. Not saying you are, but some posters on Bucknuts on our message board, our lively front row message board. There's a thread about Paris on there. I mean, he's going against elite defensive ends. We'll see. I think Paris Johnson will be a good left tackle this year for the Buckeyes. Is he going to be the number one tackle in the country like we all thought, like when he was coming out of high school as a junior this year? Probably not, but I think, that probably means he's going to come back as a senior, so that's not the worst thing in the world. He's going to be good this year. Paris Johnson will be good, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, you guys can skewer me. Yeah, exactly. Brian Hartline always sees a diamond in the rough. No doubt about it. Some positive comments here. Spider Sillery says the Buckeyes looked awesome in the spring game. Yeah, Kye Stokes. A lot of Kye Stokes love. Here. I like it, including from yours truly. I'm also engaged in that Kye Stokes love. How do I think G. Scott blocked? Spider wants to know. I thought he blocked well. I think, when you go back and watch, he held up, more than held up. He looked good. I mean, there was one time, I thought Tanner McAllister and him had a nice little collision. That showed that Tanner McAllister, can go up against a bigger guy and hold his own too. But, I thought, and that's the thing with G, they don't need him to be like Luke Farrell as a blocker, but they need him to be like, he needs to be able to get the job done. And I think he can. He's a strong, physical, tough kid, plays on special teams, not afraid to get his nose in there. I thought G. Scott looked at least serviceable, maybe better than that as a blocker, and looked really good as a receiver. So yeah, I think that was encouraging, both Joe Royer and G. Scott. Who do I think needs to step up on defense? Well, I tell you what, I mean, everybody. I mean, I don't even know. Everybody needs to step up on defense, but linebackers, I think is the one area, and I'm bullish on the linebackers. I like that Jim Knowles also is the one that isn't just the one that coaches the entire defense, but that he is also the linebackers coach. Floating back in here between the ticker and some of your questions here. So who needs to step up on defense? Steel Chambers needs to be what we think he's going to be. Tommy Eichenberg. They need more depth there. CJ Hicks going to be a guy that can get in there. Chip Trayanum didn't have that good of a spring game. Got lost a couple times in coverage, but I think overall has had a solid spring. He'll add some good depth there. Look at Cody Simon back. Reed Carrico is going to be in there. Is that Sam? We'll see about EA Nato Tiote. He's kind of, we'll see. It's kind of been a lot of hype and not a lot of sizzle yet, or a lot of sizzle, no steak, I should say, but we'll see. He's got a lot of talent, but I think Reed Carrico is a guy that's going to be in there. So there's a few guys I think need to step up on defense. But again, man, I mean, they had the number 59 total defense in the country last year, and they didn't even face that many good offenses. So the entire defense needs to step up, and I think that it will. All right, yeah, Sue says it's snowing in Toledo. Oh, snowing in Dayton. Well, it's coming our way. If it's snowing in Dayton, it means it's going to be coming right to Columbus, coming right down, as Steve Wilfong likes to say, coming right down I-70 from Dayton right to Columbus. He would say from Indianapolis to Dayton, right to Columbus. So Steve Wilfong is an Indianapolis boy. We do not need snow in mid-April. It's getting to be late April, not even mid-April. It's technically mid-April. It's getting to be late April, and it's snowing in the great state of Ohio. Yeah, should we expect Tanner McAllister to start? You're saying the Oklahoma portal. Yeah, Oklahoma State. Scott wants to know. Yeah, absolutely. Tanner McAllister is going to start. No doubt about it. Tanner McAllister will start at slot safety, and you can expect Cam Martinez to back him up. Brian has a question. What's going on with Kye Stover? Didn't see him play Saturday. I didn't think he played either when I was watching from the moon in the press box, but then when I rewatched the game, he was out there to start the game. They just got him out of there quickly. He was out there for a little bit when they were thudding up. Wasn't out there very much, but yeah. So all right, last thing here. Last question I'm gonna get to, and then we're gonna wrap up the show. Where goes one wants to know, what is my biggest concern for the season? I mean, it has to be depth on the offensive line. I mean, And even if Ryan Day didn't say it, that would be my biggest concern, but that just puts it over the top for me. I mean, you can see that depth is not where they want it to be. Second team offensive line, just not good. They don't have the depth they had last year where they're bringing guys like Matt Jones off the bench, having to find roles for moving guys around. Matt Jones was like the sixth man, and they like Josh Fryer last year. He couldn't even get on the field even though he was healthy last year as a redshirt freshman, because they were so deep. So Ryan Day saying it's a big concern of his, the biggest concern. I mean, that's got to be it. And then if I'm wrong, and let's say Paris Johnson Jr. doesn't play well, I think he will. Then depth becomes a big concern, because then you can throw what I said about, the starters are going to be fine if they stay healthy. Don't worry about it. It's just the depth that's the concern. Well, all of a sudden, and not just Paris, what if another starter, struggles, or Paris is good, but another starter struggles, then all of a sudden, maybe get Josh Fryer in there, but he's coming off a torn ACL. Depth on the offensive line is a concern, because last year they were not able to run the ball in short yardage, 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 goal line. They just could not get the job done. They have to be able to do that. There should be gimmies for Ohio State. I don't care who they're playing with these running backs and the talent they have in this offensive line, 5 stars and 4 stars all up and down this offensive line. As far as the starters, they got, 2 5-stars and 3 4-stars. I mean, I guess Dijon Jones was a 3-star, but I mean, my gosh, they re-ranked him. He wouldn't be a 3-star. The talent is there. And I think Justin Fry was a good hire, very good hire. I think he's going to coach him up, but the proof will be in the pudding, and we'll find out. I mean, Notre Dame's going to bring the noise and make them prove it week 1. I do think that's going to be a very tough game for Notre Dame, but like I said in the postgame show, I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think Ohio State will win handedly, comfortably, like they have all 4 games in my lifetime when Ohio State's played Notre Dame. We're talking 95, 96, 05, 2015. So I think it's going to be like that, where it's not a blowout, but Ohio State wins comfortably. But we'll see. The defense, obviously needs to step up, but I think the defense will be good. Depth on the offensive line is my biggest concern. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys joining me. Get on Bucknuts. I'm going to have a written version of what we learned from the spring game. You guys can check that out. Check out all the other stuff we have. Huge recruiting weekend, like I mentioned. Buckeyes now at the number 2 class in the country in the 2023 class. They're just killing it in the state of Florida. So really appreciate you guys joining me on the show. As always, if you like the show, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, depending on what, where you're watching or listening to the podcast. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in, and hope everyone has a great day.